So one of the key innovations this year is on the development.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us in the post-lunch session here. I'm very pleased to be here with my panel members. My name is Jay Stewart. I'm from iSport Connect. Our event is presented by LESPORTS TV. We're going to be talking about, as it says up there, the industry trend in China toward OTT and pay-per-view services, but more generally, we're going to be talking about the big changes that are taking place in the Chinese market, the Asian market, and I think in the international market. I'll introduce my panelists here. Very pleased to have Matt Brabants here from the NBA, Hang Yu from LESPORTS, and Richard Young from the NFL. They all have a great deal of experience in China, obviously. Hang Yu with the new venture. And I say new because this is only the second time that LESPORTS has been here at Sportel. The company is only 2.5 years old. And what I want to do is just a little bit of scene setting beforehand to tell you about the scale of what's happened with this company, LESPORTS TV. They only launched their pay-per-view service in China in April. They're already up over 2 million subscribers. They're getting about 19 million viewers a day on average from both that platform and the free windows that they have. The company, the group as a whole, is valued at over $3 billion. They're part of a bigger group called LESPORTS, which used to be called Le TV, if you recall, and you might have seen that in the past. The group is diversified. They're active not only in the media business, but they're also involved in cars. They're involved in the hardware business for smart TVs. In mobile, they're moving into the cinema business as well. And they're not only in China. They recently had their big bang in the United States only this month, when they started selling smart TVs there, and they're in the mobile business. They acquired an American company earlier this year, Vizio, for $2 billion. So we're talking about a very large-scale operation. One other thing I will add that I thought was an amazing figure, when they first launched in China, the new pay-per-view service, one of the things they were doing was giving away TVs with the subscription. And they did $51 million in one day worth of business. But I said that by way of preface because I didn't want to give Hang Yu the task of blowing his own horn or his company's own horn. What I'd like to do is to begin by allowing him to set the scene by talking about what it is that LESPORTS TV is doing right now in China, and if you could really take us through specifically what this offer is, what consumers are getting, how they get it, and what sort of product you're looking to roll out in the future.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for everybody come this afternoon. I mean, it's the second time for LESPORTS to join Sportel to present our strategy, to present the current development of the company. LESPORTS has been very aggressive in the past 2 years in the global sports media market. We work with Matt, with NBA in Hong Kong, which is launched also last month, and we work with Richard on an NFL project began 2 or 3 years ago. So when we think about the China market, everybody here got a feeling that it's a huge market. It is, right? Population-wise, it is. But talking about sports business, after 2 years operating this business, we feel at the end of the day, what exactly the commercial model that a new media company like us will stick to is always a question we need to answer. There is definitely a huge media group like CCTV covered almost 400 million households on a FTA platform. There were also provincial TV networks. There are also our competitors like Tencent, like Ali, who is also invest huge on the media and sports platform. Then we figure out from the current and in the future, I think there definitely will have two trends that inevitably the case that we need to follow. First is the transforming viewers from traditional TV platform to a new media or what's so-called OTT platform. My view is globally to say it's inevitable that everything, if you talk about the signal, if you talk about the feed, if you talk about the programming, everything will be transmitted via internet within 3 to 5 years or even longer. But at the end of the day, everything will go through internet. So my view is everything will go to a OTT platform, if we say by connected with a public broadband service, hardware, software combination as a product. So OTT will be the future platform, especially for young generation. In US, we see people talk about card to cord. So they see that they basically won't willing pay a monthly or a year or annual subscription for the whole package. They're more willing to pay a specific content that they are very interested in. So in China, we see is the same thing. Young generation of people or kids born after year 2000, we call millennial. They even don't watch their cable TV at home. We feel that will be continuing increase. So the viewers transforming from traditional to new media, especially on the OTT platform, will be a trend. Secondly, we are in the sports business. It's a very vertical scope. We're always wondering whether the traditional to be or to advertisement model can support. After 2 years, our answer is definitely no. We see the increase of the viewership after we invest huge billions of RMB into the top properties like the Premier League, China Super League, NBA, whatever top leagues. But you see the increase of the advertisement is very less compared to the increase of the licensing fee for those top properties. So I think it's time for us to review the traditional commercial model, which is supported by the advertisement. So we began to do the first new media platform in sports about the subscription service. The current subscription offering for LESPORTS is very simple. One package for an annual fee of $100. You can see about 3,000 live games from football, basketball, golf, tennis, whatever, racing, many sports inside. Then you have some documentaries. We have also some programmings inside. This is the content part. Beyond that, within this package, you have some privilege to buy sports-related stuff like tickets, like merchandising, licensing stuff. Also, you have chance to experience some tourism product like a live game at Old Trafford with a very reasonable price. So we would like to create a lifestyle by launching this subscription service. Not only content offering, it's not unlikely we will only do the content. With the ecosystem we set up, we can do all the content-related business. So it gave us a huge leverage to attract subscribers. Also, with the help from the mother company, LESPORTS, using their hardware, we can bundle our subscription service into the hardware. So you can buy a 85-inch smart TV with a very attractive price with 1 year subscription inside. It's also help to attract users. In the long run, I think to set up this paywall in China is the only way for a new media platform like us, or also like our competitors, to survive in a fierce competition in the future, fighting for the top properties, fighting for the revenue that can support this business. That's in general what we did.
Thanks very much. I'd like to move things along to Richard. You're based in China, and it'd be interesting to get a sense from you of where you see this new proposition, and I say new, I mean relatively new, this new trend fitting into the market. Do you think the time is right, and where do you think it's going?
Thank you, Jay. I think it's going to be fundamentally transformational for the entire sports industry in China, and LESPORTS has led the way. I think if you understand the true landscape of media in China previously, if you look at it, there is one nationwide sports channel for 1.4 billion people. And from there, it goes down to a series of kind of cascading monopolies at the provincial level and the municipal level. And then, and there's some 3,500 television stations. So there's not a lack of stations, but there's probably now, there are no other nationwide, even on the nationwide satellite platforms, that are dedicated to sport. There are very few, really only in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou. You've got a couple of other very small, but not much more than 6 other dedicated sports channels in a country of 1.4 billion. And a lot of that comes from, government regulation and just the structure of the free-to-air landscape. And as we all know, in this business, the majority of sports leagues' revenues comes from rights fees, from television. Sponsorship is a difficult game. You have to be at a certain level and a certain level of maturity to get it. And when you start, you need to have television revenues. And when you start to have a competitive landscape, a private competitive landscape, innovation happens. For those of us from the States, when we were growing up, I think we all thought Three's Company was pretty good TV, and it wasn't. And when you got competition, and you get Game of Thrones and House of Cards, and you get all that kind of stuff, and that's what comes out of competition. And this is what's happening now in China. And I think it's taken a leap because of the, let's say, relatively, to be polite here, I guess backwardness of the television landscape. And it's had to leapfrog forward. And I think you can honestly say, as we go forward over the next 5 years, if you want to see where developments can come in the Western world, whereas you never looked to in media, you never looked to China previously, you should look to China now to see what's going on in their media landscape, to see the next developments that are going to take place overseas, because it's being now held back by cable TV, the success of cable TV, and all of that, and you're going to see a slower transformation. As Yuhang mentioned, they're going to have to develop the dual revenue streams. There's no way you can compete if you don't have those dual revenue streams. But that's something that just takes time. People get used to paying for things, whether it's bottled water or television or whatever it is. It's not a cultural thing. It's just going to take a little bit of time. But it is going to be transformational for sport in China to help everything from their national soccer team, which needs it, and it all the way through, because money, well spent money, creates success. And so I think this sector, loosely termed over the top, so anything outside of free-to-air broadcasting, it doesn't matter whether it's conditional access or however it's done, but that area is now doesn't have to be state-owned. It's a private and highly competitive landscape inside of China, and good things are coming out of it. And I think you're going to see many people talk about deals right now that, oh, that was so expensive. I remember seeing it in India in the late 90s as well, where people were saying, oh my God, they just paid so much. And about 18 months later, those deals were looking pretty cheap. I wouldn't be surprised if that's happening here soon.
Well, Matt, you're with LESPORTS TV in Hong Kong. How did that decision come about to get into this new this new way of reaching the market? And you've structured a deal there where you're available to a wider audience. Is that right?
Well, I think that we wanted to go with, and always do want to go with, the market leader. And LESPORTS has shown a history of being innovative. As you said at the beginning, what they're doing in spheres outside of media is pretty impressive. And I think we had the privilege of working with them in mainland China under the LeTV brand at the time. We had a positive experience. And I think when they decided to enter Hong Kong, pretty recently, we decided that they were going to be a great opportunity. It was going to be a great opportunity for us, really, to seek a new distribution partner. And what they're doing is innovative. I mean, OTT platform, I think it's the place we want to be. We have a young, technically savvy consumer. Our fan is increasingly, not surprisingly, consuming our content on digital. So the idea of going to the fan base in this way was attractive to us. And they're a known commodity. We knew them well from our experience in China, and it was the perfect timing.
One of the things, as you mentioned, Hengyu, about the way you're marketing yourselves is this idea of bundling an offer. So if you could just take us more specifically to how does that work? I mean, how do you make people aware that you exist and that you can give them something new and that it's easy for them to obtain?
Well, I think LeSports brand in China, after 2 years, it's become a leading sports brand for those who are already interested in sports. So it's not difficult to let them to find we have new product. To bundling this subscription service through all our platform, which include your big screen part, which is the smart TV, your small screen part, which is your mobile phone with Le brand or other brand, or you can go through the PC side, which is very easy for most of the students. So, and the pay methodology, the pay mechanism is even easier with Alipay or WeChat Pay or whatever Apple Pay. You can easily to pay the annual fee by only scan the barcode on a screen. Very simple. So I don't think the consumer or subscribers find difficulties to subscribe or enroll into our product. It's not difficult, but the difficulty is to let them to understand what we are exactly offering. What is the product of this subscription package? So we try to explain many times until today, until I met with many partners this time, I try to explain the subscription package for LESPORTS. It's not only a watch live content product, no, it's a lifestyle. It's something sports fans need. So unless they feel it's valuable, they won't pay for that. So the difficulties or the challenging part, we always talk about whether the consumer in this market we're going to pay. We're always stuck into this question for so long, but this is not a problem. So people is willing to pay. The problem is what they are paying for. What is your content? What is your advantage compared to the other package that our competitor offering? So my view on this is, unless you have a established platform, you have established product, and a very good marketing strategy to explain yourself, then you can be at least let those people who already know your brand to think about whether they can subscribe. But how to subscribe is very easy. It won't be a problem.
You touched on something important from the viewpoint of the big rights owners and the leagues that have lots of different content. And Matt, when you look at something like this, you have a new platform for reaching a very large market. How do you package your own content? How does that relationship work? Do you have a ready-made sort of module that goes to LESPORTS and they basically translate it, or is there something that's more customized? How does that work?
So it can take a lot of different forms. For our own branded products, we offer a service called League Pass, which is available internationally. And that's a service that's very much premium. It's behind a paywall. It's available in different SKUs. We have a full season. We have a single game offering. And we're increasingly going to try and find ways to localize that. So that's going to be a priority for us, is to figure out ways to provide local language commentary in the case of live games. We're already translating the landing pages. We're already doing things that make it accessible to the consumer. Over time, I think making it a more localized product will happen. We've been relatively slow, I would say, to do that. It's been largely an English language service, but that's something we intend to change. When it comes to partnering locally with a licensee of the caliber of LESPORTS, that's where we really can deliver the authentic local product. They're going to hire best-in-class commentators. They're going to provide the production values that the product needs to appeal to an audience in that country. That's something that's difficult for us to do from a distance. So that goes into the analysis of why we pick a particular partner. Because, our brand, we're handing over our brand to a certain extent. When we select a media partner, they're going to be the voice of the NBA in that market for many years, in the case of LESPORTS. And I think it's an absolute critical choice. It's not just as simple as what's the penetration, how many people will they reach, and what's the devices on which they're accessible. All important and all fundamental, but I'd say how they localize, the caretaking they do against that product, the talent they hire, the editorial they hire, how they localize, what product they create outside of the live game, in our case. How do they create products that reach a fan outside of the morning time slot, which is, of course, where we transmit live in Asia? Those are all questions that go into the decision-making, because if you're just making a decision based on commercial terms, it can be a mistake. It can be a mistake. It has to be the entire package. And that balance, how you balance what you do with your local product versus what you do with your licensee, is also part of the challenge we face, because we want to add as much value as possible to our commercial relationship with LESPORTS.
But would it be fair to say that whether it's for the NFL or for the NBA or for any big rights owner with a lot of content, that you sit on them effectively as a type of channel? Is it almost that sort of a relationship, to use old terminology?
Well, in this case, it's both. I mean, we're going to offer a linear channel on LESPORTS' service, NBA TV. which has live games as part of the linear service. And then we'll also deliver games that they can include within their own services that are separate from a traditional linear channel. So it's a bit of both.
A bit of both. And Richard, in terms of the way you would approach this kind of a platform, would you see the same sort of thing where it would be a blend of both your own sort of branded presence and then other access to your material?
Yeah, absolutely. As Matthew mentioned, you have, especially out in Asia, you have a time difference, and the vast majority of people are displaced from their TV, and so you have to be able to deliver your content when and where and how they want to watch it. And whether that means that they need to download a game and watch it in a taxi, or stop it and pause it and go up in the elevator and restart it and web Slack for a little bit on their job and watch the final bits at lunch. And you have to be able to deliver that. And that's when you work with a platform such as LESPORTS, they become the caretaker for your brand inside of that territory. And it's incredibly important. And offering other ways, many times, a 3-hour game or a 2-hour game is a 12-course meal that you're just not going to get through in a workday morning. And so you just want to watch it by clips. And so you produce, if you're producing 15, 20, 30 clips per game, it's a heavy production requirement. You've got to localize all those clips, and a lot of people do watch games purely through clips. And so, in truth, when you're measuring your engagement, video begins is as invaluable a metric as UVs, unique viewers, or average minute audience, all of those things. You've got to look at a different way that people will engage during the time that your game is live.
You're touching on something that obviously underlies a lot of this bigger change that's taking place in the media market, which is you can get your metrics back because of the nature of the platform in a precise way as to what the audience looks like and how long they're watching and so on. There's also a data element that comes into this, and potentially that, from the point of view of your partners, obviously offers a whole new dimension to your marketing efforts. So I'm wondering how that fits in, Hangyu, to the conversations that you have. Maybe it's early in the day, and one of the big issues is always that people say, oh, there's all this data, but what do we do with it, or how is it used? Do you see this as something you're tackling now, or is that for the next phase?
I mean, few years ago, people began to talk about big data. So we hate from the industry point of view, we hate to hear big data since we don't understand what exactly that means to us. That's been quite a while. But considering of the conversation or the trend we see today, we feel currently the problem for our big screen service and the traditional big screen, which is television service, is basically we only change the way that people access to those content. Basically, we never change the fundamental way of transmitting. So people see from the cable TV and people see from a smart TV is generally the same thing. So that's the current experience. Since without a big data, I don't think that will be the case. So talking about the future, my view about an internet company or technology-based company, their advantage is using this big data application, using a artificial intelligence, using more accurate algorithm to give a recommendation via a user interface that only suitable for your favorite. So when you turn on devices, you can see everything is related to your own favorite and interest. That's a totally different experience compared to a linear channel. When you turn on a linear channel, you can only watch what they are showing. So I think big data is the future. That is no doubt but how to utilize this data. This data is pricelessly valuable, and also I think is the key for utilize this data to develop the suitable application that can change the way people is watching. That will be the
Right.
crucial
so
point.
The first phase of the data, or using the data, is to use the data to create a better product for the consumer,
Right,
your product.
for
Yeah.
better approach
Yeah.
to the consumer. So
Better
if,
approach
if,
to the consumer.
if, for example, if we want them to renew, if, for example, if we want them to renew the subscription package, and what we recommend to him is nothing related to his interest, there is no way he's going to renew. So I think it's talk about a new approach to the current subscriber.
And this personalization, I mean, do you see this as a necessary trend for you to
Well,
be involved in?
Yeah, I mean, the business has gone in that direction. I mean, you look at your Facebook feed, and they're targeted advertisements that can be a little creepy sometimes, right? I mean, I was just searching for a wallet, and now I'm being targeted with a wallet or a generator for my home. It's all personalization, right? So it's the direction the business is going in. It's in that direction. Curation, personalization, more discoverability, the ability to not have to shop around and find what you're looking for. It comes to you. That's what these services increasingly offer. It's, in very simple terms, it's not a linear experience. It isn't. And we're not used to consuming content anymore in a linear environment. It's just not the way life is. I mean, we don't even order a car anymore. I mean, you go to an app and you order a car on Uber. I mean, it's a specialized experience that's customized for you. It goes a lot deeper than media, but I think this is the media evolution of that premise.
And for live sports, Richard, you can imagine that from a live sports viewpoint, where there's a lot of choice, if you have a situation where you're alerting people that their team is going to be playing, on Sunday at such and such a time in advance, that would be a huge benefit. I would like to get a message like that because oftentimes you miss things.
Sign up for alerts.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is, and the level of customization, it's important that the consumer sets that, because you can be tracked and followed by that wallet all the way through every other web page that you go to. But sport, because of the way it's structured with loyalty to teams and to leagues and its interest in entertainment, many times those things that follow you around are beneficial, and you enjoy them. So they both create advertising opportunities, but also create a better user experience, opposite than the wallet that follows you around. But it's very important in China. It's extremely important to identify your fan, because one of the challenges, I think one of the biggest challenges in China is that sport, comparatively to other countries, is just not that popular. And right now, but if you're one in a million there's 1,400 other people just like you. So there's a lot of people there. So you still see large deals and things like that. But as a percentage of the population, it's not necessarily mass. Whereas things like dramas and music and things like that are far more mass. And so big data can serve a very, very useful purpose in identifying people who are now fans, getting them to be more ambassadors for that sport, for that platform, for whatever it is, as it develops. I have no doubt that sport will play a larger role in people's lives in China than it is now, is going forward in the future. What level that is comparative to other countries is probably more of a cultural issue, but it's an important element, an important tool these days in China.
The Chinese Super League is one of your flagship properties. That league is now, if I'm not mistaken, they're investing more money in the transfer market than the Premier League, more money than any other league in the world. So you'll probably see quite rapid growth in terms of the interest in that, don't you think?
Well, the China Super League, no, still the Premier League is the number one league who invest money on the transfer market. I think the Super League will still needs time to go up for that. But in general, I think the government gave a huge support to develop football. And the football business, the professional club business, is becoming more and more, money burning in both elite players transfer system and also the substantial grassroots scheme. There is huge investment. Talking about the media product, yes, we have the exclusive deal with our partner, which we can show all the league games on our platform, on all the platform. I think our mission is to try to promote something, some domestic leagues, which is more related to the Chinese consumer. I don't mean that Premier League is far away, NBA is far away, but in general, Super League is our own league. It has to be treated in a different way. That's my own view, and we can do much better things since the live game happened during the weekend in the city. So we can do many things. But still, if we talk about a paywall set up on top of this domestic league product, sometimes it's still challenging. I think it's still too far, too late, too early to say that all the consumers can be affordable for a subscription service. So we have to maintain and also keep a balance between the FTA platform and the subscription platform to have a better interest for every stakeholders, including clubs, sponsors, participants, players, and the medias. We need to have a balancing point to suit for everybody. So my view is it's going to be a perfect subscription product, but not now. Maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, when the league be more stable. It's very stable, but can be more mature in various ways, including commercial program. And also the product need to improve either production quality and offline activation on the marketing and promotion. But it will be a superb product for the subscription service since it's anyway a domestic league.
We can open up to questions. If there are questions from the floor, please by all means raise your hands. And anyone have a question here on Kieran? Is there a mic?
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, everybody. Just a question for Mr. Hang Yu. What percentage of the content and the value is behind the paywall? Is all of it, or just a percentage?
Well, I think I will say the driver of those top properties among all the sports properties is still the key. I mean, the top properties, what I mean is the top football leagues, basketball leagues, domestic and overseas. In general, this is the key driver. And also the specific elite sports like Grand Slam in both golf and tennis will become a driver for certain kinds of subscribers. So in general, I think I won't say everything will fit into a subscription package, but my view is the top properties and the elite properties on niche, very niche properties can be the driver.
But for as it exists now, is there free content available as well? Or how much free content?
For our own content storage, this year we put 30% of the whole content into the subscription. That's our own platform. But in general, back to your question, you don't ask for our own platform. But you ask in general my view on the rise. And our platform is 30% of the whole content storage. Since there is always some content, when we acquire those contents, it's on a non-exclusive basis. There is no way we should put those into the package. There's no way for that.
Another question here from Supanor, our friend.
Yes, how do the leagues square or balance the difference between trying to promote a sport into an emerging market such as this and putting your content on what's effectively a restricted network, which makes it harder for the broad population potentially to access, and that could have a knock-on effect on fans embracing and growing the sport over a number of years?
Matt, you want to?
Well, the goal is to be doing both, is to have an indigenous partner that has the ability to localize and market the content. And then for the really avid consumer that can't get enough of the NBA, they know where to go to find that specialized product. What we've tried to strike a balance with in the past couple of years is making even the pay product more accessible by offering single game purchases. So if you don't want to buy an entire season, you can go and watch a Golden State Warriors Cleveland Cavaliers game, and you don't have to buy the entire season. Because what we saw was that the average consumer, the average fan of the NBA, doesn't want to necessarily spend the money on a pay product that involves every single game. It's our way of trying to reach that fan that just wants to experiment. But they're definitely not mutually exclusive concepts. We want to be doing both. I think to succeed, we need to find those partners in the markets where we need to build basketball that are locally relevant and can build the sport with a broader reach than we currently have with our own product.
I think we have time for one more question. I'd like to put everyone up here on the spot because we're going to have to wrap up. But in doing that, you mentioned a time span of 3 to 5 years, I think, for the replacement of the existing model for consuming sports or consuming television or consuming entertainment or whatever you want to call it, that it will move to an internet consumption. Richard, what do you think is the timeline, or what are we looking at in terms of that transition before people are going to be predominantly watching things via the internet? Streaming. Let's just call it streaming.
For China, or for
China
it's
and then everywhere.
I think it's a value proposition in the sense of, if you're getting what you want from your cable television, then that will continue. It's whether you're seeing the value out of there or not. And as far as the delivery method, of whether, every now and then my dad will say, "Oh, is that on cable TV?" And I'm like, I don't know. It's just a television channel. And I think the delivery service and how it's done will be less important of whether it's closed line, telephony line, or whether it's broadband, or whether it's coming in from satellite, or however it goes. But yeah, I think in certain territories like China, the internet works very well, and that's where it's developing most quickly, and is able to provide, I think, going to the last question, is your different services. You've got to be able, you can't just have a game that's normally free behind a paywall. You have to have something that you're getting value out of what you buy. And at one end, is same as the league pass with the NBA, we have a game pass where you can watch every single game over the last 5 years. You can watch condensed games. You can watch coaches' films, different angles, all of these kind of things, but you have to pay for it, and it's quite expensive. It's about $200. And that's at one extreme end. And at the other extreme end, if you just want to watch a standard camera broadcast, it's generally should be free at that time. But if you want something more, that's the pay levels, and that's how closely you have to work with the platform to put that together. But I would agree. I would say 3 to 5 years in China is the vast majority. Television is always going to play its role in every country. And that in China, that is, the strength of CCTV will continue. But it is a linear channel that can only show one game at a time. And it'll continue to do that very well, but that doesn't, with the opening up there, there's going to be a lot more demand for other forms of consumption.
Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, speaking about, I'm not sure this is on here yet. Speaking of China specifically, I would just say that I think it'll continue to be a gradual migration. I don't think it's going to happen in the near future that you'll see a brand like the NBA migrate off of traditional TV. We have a 30-year history with CCTV, and they've played a huge role, substantial role in building our brand in China. So I think, to Richard's point, I don't see that changing in the short term with linear television. But I see in some markets outside of China, Hong Kong being a good example, where the traditional TV model will be changed and will change quickly.
I think we're running out of time here. I want to thank our panelists for taking part in this event, and I also want to thank LESPORTS for putting this on. We're organizing as iSport Connect, working in partnership with LESPORTS on an event that's taking place in China next month. If you look at the flyers on your seats, we're very excited about that proposition, and there's a very interesting lineup on that. But thank you, gentlemen. If we'll give them a hand here. And you could catch up with them after the event, I'm sure. Thanks.